Hello, everyone. I am super excited to be here with the amazing Tania Saiz. We have been friends. We were colleagues. We've been friends for a long time. And so as I celebrate this, 50 days to 50s, I'm connecting with friends, old colleagues, and just to see, hey, what, when we met, tell a story and just, collect some of those memories and that feeling. And I know, Tania, please tell the people who you are, introduce yourself because, you're one of my faves.
You're so kind. Thank you. I'm going to go out big and bold, and I'm going to say I'm an artist, practicing art, I guess, casually for a long time and more seriously in the last year. I've lived my life as a marketer for most of my professional career, a mom to a beautiful 23-year-old, which might blow Tamara's mind because we've known each other. I can't even guess how long at this point, but 20 plus years at least. Yeah, just living life day by day and, experiencing growth however I can.
I'm like, that's special effects. So I think I've known, Maya was maybe what, 7 maybe when she would, yeah, right. So,
Yeah.
all right, backstory. We worked at Pearson together. So we worked at Pearson Education. Well, it wasn't my job out of college. It was my job out of design school when I kind of made that pivot. I was just like, yeah, I think I'm gonna go back to school and do this this thing that feels like marketing or design and kind of, and so when you and I met, we just had this natural chemistry because you were creative, I was a creative, and it was just like this synergy. But you were also like this bad marketing manager, like leading presentations and doing all these like really cool things and pulling marketing plans together. It was just like, the stuff you were doing, I was just like, man, this is amazing. And I learned so much from you. And it was just crazy, right? So that meeting, I don't remember the first meeting, but do you remember meeting?
I think we both shared something that I think holds true is that we trust our guts, right? We are both women who are strong in our conviction and we are confident in ourselves. Both of which are very scary things for people, right? So I think that's another reason why we bonded was because it was just kind of we can lead, right? And we do lead. And I think that is where we found ourselves like, hey, and like you said, there's the creativity piece of it. I think there's being a minority in a very white-led industry that also all of those pieces.
Right. And then the good food your mom would cook. It just, and again, you guys, your family's from like Cuba. So it also, you felt very Caribbean, very, very Trinidad to me in certain respects. So there was that, also that, you know what I mean? That camaraderie that led to that because we understood some things. Our parents had some of the same philosophies, right?
Right.
A lot of structure because and we were living in two worlds, right? We're living in America and then sometimes we're living in this alt universe that is not.
Yeah, I definitely have white presenting privilege and I certainly grew up with a majority of white people, but my experience was very different at home than all of them. So yes, living in America with first generation parents, certainly, creates an amazing resilience and strength, right? And a totally different ingenuity in terms of how we navigate the world.
Right, exactly. No, and I feel like you've always been super passionate about things, and it's just been it's awesome to just kind of watch you grow and talk a little bit because you've been through some things in the last year, and I want to celebrate you because I've just watched you just find a certain strength and just really, stand up, speak up for yourself and really evolve. Just to say that you're an artist, you've always been an artist to me. And you literally, you have a degree in art. I'm calling myself an artist now. I'm like, remember when you went to college? Talk a little bit about some of the things you went through.
So flipping funny because you're 100% right. But yeah, I appreciate that you noticed that because that is something that is actually kind of a ballsy move for me. And we'll segue back, to this about you. The fact that you just did that is one of the characteristics that I love and embrace about you. You know what I mean? This is about you. We came on here to talk about you, and you're just like, you're so generous. You're generous with your knowledge. You're generous with just your talent. You know, you could easily just be dominating the world for your own benefit. And your goal is to help other people and empower others. And I think that is such an amazing thing about you. So that was in my notes of like preparing for this. So I appreciate kind of I'll throw that little bit over and then I'll answer your question respectfully. Let you like soak that in. I mean, yeah, it's been 2020 was a challenge for everybody in their own right. It was like the world went like on full tilt in 2020. My world went a little bit off tilt even further. I had a stroke in August of 2020. Um, I would have probably said to you, I don't want to talk about it, except that I'm actually very passionate about the fact that women's stroke symptoms present differently. So hear this now, ladies. And there are a lot of things that are risk factors for women that are different than men, but that's a whole other story that, for another day. But it is something that's important to me. So I am a two-time stroke survivor. I had another stroke in the hospital, actually, which I only recently realized. Like I knew I did, but I didn't think about it as surviving 2 strokes. But and I kind of like, I do a lot of kind of sarcasm to deal with things. And I do a lot of like, I don't belittle the experience, but I also kind of compartmentalize it and move, kind of beyond it. So I feel like I'm a professional physical therapy patient at this point. I might have like a low grade medical degree because I've learned so much about my own health and like kind of what I've gone through. But yeah, I struggle with physical challenges, some cognitive memory stuff on a daily. And despite all of that, I still try to live in the real world and like better myself. I've gotten a few certifications while I've been on this kind of, we call it, I'm like, it's a sabbatical, sort of like in my own health and wellness kind of journey. So I'm constantly challenging myself. And in May of last year, I got a concussion. And that's when I decided to like take like a month or 2 off from all technology. And that's when I really started to paint. And even though, as you said, I have an art degree, painting is like a horrible thing. It was a painful thing. I created 3-dimensional art, but because of the limitation with like my left hand, I haven't really done anything sculptural because it's a little bit more of a challenge. So I was like, oh, I'm just going to like, kind of start a concussion sketchbook. And it really sort of re-engaged me with my creativity. And it's been amazing. I actually, I just got word yesterday that I got another piece accepted into a small gallery in Westchester. So I'm super stoked. So that'll be my second gallery this year. And I'm working on a public art piece. So I'm embracing the challenge that is reinventing yourself, having had a 20+ year career that I probably would have reached the end of that road sort of on my own accord anyway, because it wasn't the most fulfilling. And to be able to have the ability, due to some adverse circumstances, to focus on, something that is really fulfilling is, a gift. I really see myself as lucky, as twisted as that might seem.
I love that. I mean, listen, that's amazing. And it's awesome to watch you thrive, right? It's awesome to watch you get back up. It's awesome to just see that, because a lot of people sometimes can't, and you're like moving it forward, and you're such an advocate. And I love that you're an advocate. And it's good to just be in a circle with people like you. So I am honored that, you know what I mean, I get to call you a friend. And again, I've learned so much from you. I've added a lot more pizzazz to my presentations. I mean, as much as sometimes, those, you're like, cognitively, you're here, there. I literally sent you something and you edited me like 2 months ago. You were like, oh, here are the edits I will make. And I was just like, got it. And it was like perfect edits, right? You're that person that I would send stuff that I'm sure when you get it, you're like, connect these dots, connect these dots, connect these dots. So you're like one of my, you're like good spell check to me.
I have my moments. It just has to be within my own time space continuum. Yeah. And you know what? The fact that you said that now, and you've said this to me, because we had some work project, we reconnected work wise, right? And we did work together, like, kind of my post-stroke world of work. And I think one of the things that made it easy to work with you is that you acknowledged the strengths that you saw cognitively. And even though there were like a lot of like, there's, with a brain injury, there's a lot that can, impact a day-to-day, like your productivity per se. And I always loved and appreciated, and I think it brought down my affective filter because you were just, you accepted those things non-verbally, right? You never had to acknowledge them. You just like, that was those were like kind of ground rules that we had, but then you always celebrated me for like kind of like what you saw as a strength. And again, that's a testament to who you are. And I think who you've been, because you do work to maximize people's strengths. Even in our project with like, wackadoodle business, right? You're like, all right, well, all of this stuff might be a dumpster fire, but look, we can take these things. Like, your authors are incredible. Let's like highlight those shining stars and downplay all the other crazy stuff. We'll put that in the background, It was,
Right.
it's a gift. It's a gift to be able to see that.
Well, so it's because I very early learned that people wanted you to fix weaknesses. And I was just like, why are we doing that? So you got graded on weaknesses and, and
Yeah.
so I started to understand that if I leaned into my strengths and I leaned into other people's strengths, that was a better situation. And those weaknesses, you kind of hire somebody else to take care of those things. So I'm not in the business of turning weaknesses into strengths. I'm in the business of what is this raw potential that we can evolve into something better, pull those things together. And do we need to get somebody? You just need to talk and we need to get somebody to write everything you say down. Got it. Because I'll take a quarter of your brain any day. And that's just what it is. Because it's like, okay, cool, this is gold. And I will take that and just tell me all the tools you need, right? So I think those are the differences. And I appreciate that as a strength because I'm like, it's something that it was intentional because for a long time it was always the jobs. They talked about your weaknesses, right? Here are the weaknesses that you have. Here, you're in school, here are the weaknesses that you have. You talk too much, you this, you that, the other. Well, guess what? I do all those things for a job now. And
yeah,
what you
right.
perceive is not. So it's all opinion and perception, right? So those things are, and while I understand people have their opinions, when you're living and running a business, those opinions become like less and less, and you kind of get to that core group of people who you can say, okay, great, help me here, edit me here, tell me how I can move forward, those things. So I think you build the community to support those weaknesses and really focus in on those strengths.
That's amazing because not everybody in this society does not like necessarily go like, oh, here's a great approach, right? That's like bucking the norm, which I think is pretty much, and I'm like, I think that's the right phrase. That's who you've been though, right? Like you walked into a corporate job, but you're like unaccepting and not, you were like unaccepting of the limitations that a lot of people were like, how do I say, they were just accepting of them, right? You're unaccepting of them. Other people just, well, this is our normal. We just always have to like, fight against, we're like always rowing upstream. And you're like, well, there's a whole other river over here. Like you weren't even like, you're rowing the wrong way, guys. You're like, there's another river. Like, I don't understand why you're fighting this fight. There's a whole other place we could be playing with like peaceful waters and we can get so much further. So you never let those systems stop you, or at least you trying to like change things. You didn't always win, but you always put up a good fight. And I respected that about you because you didn't just say, this is what has to happen. I remember very early on learning so much from you, right? Because you have background I didn't have, and I remember, and still to the day, I remember taking, I'm going to hopefully get this key phrase right because you challenged the idea of, for the first time, I believe, in my professional career, that the fallacy in the argument of I think, right? And you're like, and who cares what you think? You didn't say that, but you basically said like, that's just your opinion. That's not what the market is saying. You were such an advocate for listening, beyond like your own thoughts. And that was like, oh my God, so every time someone would say, I think, literally for 23 years of a career, I'd be like, bullshit. I was like, no, that's just what you think. And then I would ask the questions like, so you said, about this, like, what is that based on? Like, what customers have you spoken to? It always gave me this like little tiny step stool to be like, what are you talking about? And kind of call people out for just potentially having an opinion, but stating it as fact.
Right. And I mean, in a world that we live in right now, which is like, right. There's like, actual, non-actual, all the things. So yes, and data gets you to that point, right? It's these facts and these opinions. And that's for me also being a strong debater and being able to position my opinions as facts to win the argument. So it's about being self-aware, right? If I want to win an argument, I'm going to say and do whatever I need to do to win the argument. So in corporate settings, that's all I saw, right? Is everyone, taking it out, putting it on the table. And it's just like, I think. And then we're making these decisions over and over based on these strong voices, but there's no fact to back that up. And the minute we start rolling back into the data, the facts, because what we were doing is we were working with teachers, and they were people who they had a lot of empathy. So we had to really start putting our teachers' hats on and stop listening to the people who weren't the teachers. So it was, and it comes back to what we do at Monoman now, right? Who's your target audience? What's that customer journey? How do they flow? Because you got to listen to those voices and not those corporate voices in there making those decisions of I think and I feel and making strong decisions. We see where some of the marketing goes, where I'm like, sometimes I'm like, oh boy, somebody thought and felt something that they shouldn't have. Like, and what was crazy is where we worked, we legit had like one of the best market researchers on the planet, right? So we had like a dude who was like doing his like the thing, like there was a whole, so why not take this data and use it to support the argument? So that's where data starts to become important, because that separates I think to what it actually is. And so whenever people start with I think, I'm always like, oh boy.
Here we go. But when did you start at Pearson? Like what roughly? Was it like 2006-ish?
I think so. Because I moved to New York in like 2000. And then, so it had to be like 2000, 2006, 2004, something around there. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So like pioneer in pushing data-driven decision-making, because now everybody, right? Everybody speaks, like they don't speak data necessarily, but they say it, right? Like they intention to utilize data to make decisions. You were like, you were leading the pack back then in terms of how that should have been influencing things. So is one of your strengths being a fortune teller? I don't know. But you were definitely ahead of the curve, right? Like way ahead. Like there wasn't even a curve. You were just, truthfully, like because you weren't like, oh, I think some of it was instinctual. Like you just understood the value of that non-objective, right? Or subjective. I don't know. There's a word that's right. I can't remember which one it is right now. But whatever that word is, like you understood that we needed to be looking at it objectively. And so that was revolutionary. Seriously, back then. I mean, that was young in the time frame. And we were an industry that still struggles. Educational publishing still isn't like, like doesn't really have the kind of infrastructure like other industries do to leverage data in their marketing.
Right. And
like they do more and more, but it's still in its infancy in terms of that industry.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's almost shocking and sad to see, right? But you're absolutely right. Those being objective, it took a while to build to that, right? That's not that is by no means a superpower. Being objective is one of those things where, but I have to, I hear what my gut is saying. Then I listen to the emotions, and I'm kind of like weighing it out to be like, okay, cool. Let me remove me from this situation completely, because a lot of times it's not about me. And so, as human beings, we really get caught up into things being about ourselves. And that's where all the things go wrong, right? So how can I position things to it not be about me and then it not be about somebody else? Even as I watch people leverage social media, many times they're talking about somebody else or how the world perceives them. And I'm like, man, if we were to just approach it from who we are and not all these other factors that may impact you, but you also kind of need to understand your part in that impact, right? And then really getting to that place of how do I be as objective as possible? You know, it's a balancing act, but I appreciate that as a a skill that I've been fine tuning all my life. It's also how I don't catch a case, right? Because so many times what I think and what I feel is not even, it's not relevant in the moment, right? I may not jive with someone, feel the feelings with them, whatever the case may be. But if I'm objective and I'm like, what's the role that they're playing, and how do I lean into that and not make this about me? That's what happens in business. That's
Right,
the
right.
we don't have to love each other. We don't have to, you know what I mean? Like, we have our select crew. This is how we function. And it's less about that. It's kind of like, where's that strength? So it leads you back to that strength and being objective, get the job done, and then move forward, right? And don't go out for drinks.
Right, right, right. And as an entrepreneur, right, as your business owner, you're like, we finished the project and, we're good now. Like, like, let's just move our separate ways, I mean, there's a beauty in that, right? Where you can say, this was a really great relationship and there's so much more potential here. Or, I've helped you as much as I can help you. Because some people just can't get out of their own way, and I think that you definitely see the difference in that. And I think it allows you to maximize the time you spend with people.
Definitely. Well, I appreciate you. I'm so glad we got to do this. I could not celebrate 50 years and not bring you into the fold. I was excited when you were like, yeah, just like, yeah. I got Oliva did it as well too. So
oh, yay, nice.
In my strong Latina population jumping over the world. And so, yeah, Tania, again, it's been just awesome to watch you grow, to watch you lean into your artistry. And thank you for celebrating with me. I really, really, really appreciate it.